All right. So I think you might have been informed already that from next week onward, the class will be in offline mode. So it will be held in the classroom in mechanical department. Room number I don't exactly remember. I think it might have been communicated to you. I think room 221 or something like that. Okay. I can check and I can send an email. So all of you are in the campus and quarantine has ended. What about MTech students first year? Your quarantine has ended.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And dual degree students also quarantine has ended, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about PhD student Madhumita and Priyal? Priyal is not here. Madhumita, you are in the campus or like you are first year student, right? PhD.
Yes, sir, we are in the campus.
Priyal is also in the campus. Do you know
Yes,
about
sir,
her?
yes, sir.
Both are in campus. Then from Monday onward, we will have to follow the instructions sent by the academic section and hold the class in the classroom. Okay. I will communicate to you the classroom number. It might have been already sent to you. I don't know, but I will separately tell you. It's in mechanical department. I think room 221 most probably or 219, some second floor room. And next week means Monday morning. Okay. Actually, we have very little amount of material left, and we have the 2 days of presentation, which will be next to next week. That will also be held in the classroom itself. Okay. So on Monday and Wednesday, next to next week. And next week we can finish the course and we can have some extra discussion if needed if any of you are facing any problem. So what about the status of projects? Let me. Some students have emailed to me saying that they are finding it difficult to select a suitable problem. So we can discuss it now because we have a lot of time before we go into the subject discussion. This is not needed. Snehit, you are there? Snehit, you are there, right?
Yes, sir.
Have you been able to select a suitable problem or thinking? Have you thought about a problem for the project?
Yes, sir. Like
On what topic is
I
it?
thought about doing an ANSYS
Okay, ANSYS
on
problem. But
PCM.
have you decided the topic?
Yes, sir. PCM melting of PCM.
Okay, okay, fine, fine. So you can submit the brief introductory report on by Friday. Okay, it need not
Yes,
be
sir.
like lot of text. It is just about domain and objective and equations boundary conditions. Okay, so Snehit has done. What about Sachin? Raj Sachin is not here. Huh? Let me put others. Manoj, Manoj, you are here.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Have you selected any topic?
No, sir, I didn't select the topic yet, but I am thinking of taking it related to fluid dynamics. I mean, drag calculation and lift
So
calculation.
then fluid dynamics means you have to do it in ANSYS or something because you will not be able to code it. So accordingly, you
Yes, sir.
decide. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir. I will choose a project in ANSYS only.
Okay. Okay. So yours is also more or less sorted. Then Abhijit, Abhijit, you are here. Abhijit is not here. Jagdish is here. Jagdish, You had sent me an email. Who
Yes,
has
sir.
sent? No, not you. So you have still decided any topic?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
Like instead of cylinder heat flux is applied transient analysis of axisymmetric cylinder.
Okay. Okay. How will you do it? Means using ANSYS or coding?
Difference.
Yes. How will
I
you
am
approach
trying
it?
to do it in. I am trying to do it in MATLAB, sir. Currently, I
Ah,
am doing in finite difference
that is
method.
fine. Finite difference is the easier one. You should use finite difference if you're trying on your own because that is easy comparatively.
Yes, sir, I am doing that.
Okay. Tanmay, you have decided?
Not yet, sir. Like, can I use one of the PCM melting things that I've been doing? Like, I'm
You
thinking.
can do, but something extra needs to be
Yeah.
done.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. I'll
Means
search for a new topic.
it should not be your marks will be based on the additional work you are doing. It should not be based on what you have done previously for other things. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'll search for a new topic.
Okay. Or you can do on PCM also, but you can, yes, using the code, but on some with some modification. Okay.
Yes.
Think about it, but you have to submit the proposal, means the project description by Friday.
Yes, sir.
Muzaffar, you are here? Yes. Muzaffar, what is your topic? Can you hear me? We'll come back to him later. Vamsi, have you decided the topic?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, analysis of ducts in high temperature surrounding.
Can you repeat? I just the voice broke off.
Analysis of ducts in high temperature surroundings. Sir.
Analysis of ducts in high temperature surrounding. Means flow is going through the duct or
Yes, sir.
okay. And outside you are getting some high temperature boundary conditions, something like that. It should
Yes.
be, it is the ANSYS based problem, right?
Yes, sir. Analysis of ducts.
Then it's good, no problem. Siddharth, you are here? Siddharth is here. Siddharth?
Yes,
have you
sir.
decided?
Yes,
Yes.
sir. So I was.
Excuse me, sir. I'm Hussain.
Yes, I will come back to Hussein. Siddharth, yes.
Yes, sir. So I was thinking of doing an ANSYS simulation with the aim of calculating the vortex track in an F1 car.
That is very good, but it's quite challenging. So if you can do it, it will be good.
Yes, sir. I'll only do of the rear wing and
Okay.
the ends of the rear wing. So it's
How
small
will you
project.
get the rear wing CAD model? You will draw something
So I'll,
like.
yes, sir. So, it's very simple because I'll just take the end part because the most of the vortices are created on the on the extreme wings of the car, and I'll
Okay.
only take on the rear wing. So I can create a SolidWorks model in like half an hour,
Okay. Then
so it
good
won't
if
be
you
very
can do it.
difficult.
Okay.
And then I can proceed it I can change it to from SolidWorks to ANSYS and
Means
do
you are
some.
thinking about a rear wing, like you are saying F1 car, right? Formula One car.
Yes, sir. Sure. So
So rear wing means then that side also, then side winglets are there, right? That means
yes, sir. So I'm not doing the entire wing.
okay.
Just side portion of the rear wing. So
Okay.
I know how it how physics acts and like how
It's
the
good.
fluid
It's good.
flow is there. But I
Good.
just have to calculate what is the vortex drag and like how it will affect the car. Just the rear wing.
You can do it. It will be very good.
Yes, I'll try.
Quite
But I don't know
realistic.
how successful I'll
You are
be.
interested in F1, is it?
Yes, sir. So I watch a lot of
Because
F1.
I am very
So
interested. That's why I know a lot about F1.
yes,
I am
sir.
watching for last 20 years. When
Oh, okay.
like from the beginning of Kimi Raikkonen like journey,
Oh, okay.
I was a big
Sebastian
fan
Vettel.
of. So from
I'm a new
like
fan,
when
sir. So I'm only Max Verstappen.
Verstappen is very good. Anyway, let us not deviate. So
That is why I saw the voters being created,
that is true. You
and
can
I
see
was interested.
even when they are driving at very high speed, at the
Yes, sir.
corners, because of very low pressure, condensation occurs, and
Yes,
you
sir.
can actually see the vortices because of condensation. Low pressure, what happens? The vapor pressure becomes higher than the low pressure that is generated. As a
Yes,
result,
sir.
the water vapor condenses, and you can clearly see that, like similar
I
to jet
think
engines.
yes, sir. So in Russian Grand Prix, we saw lots of vortices being created because it was raining so much.
Okay, good.
Yes, so
You know,
that's one thing.
you are here.
Sir, excuse me, this is Hussein.
Hussein, yes, Hussein. Have
Uh,
you decided any topic?
yes, sir, I'm thinking of doing droplet impact,
Droplet?
simulation on droplet impact testing.
A very difficult problem. So again, think about means if you can
Yeah,
do it, it is very good. But it's a challenging problem in CFD. This actual
okay.
research is going on in this area.
Actually, uh,
Hmm.
I'm going through it, sir. So if I find it difficult, I'll switch maybe.
You can switch then to something like droplet evaporation or like heat transfer from droplet. If you find impact is actually realistic problem. Lot of like Dr. Shashidar's students actually do droplet
Okay, sir.
impact problem. So they are actually doing research on droplet impact, means PhD and MTech students. So it's a challenging problem. You can try a simpler droplet impact problem, like normal one single droplet is impacting. If you can do
Okay,
it, it
sir.
will be good. Try it. ANSYS has the
Yes.
capability. Shivam, have you decided? No, this is not Vinod. This
Sir,
is Hussain, right?
Yes, sir. I'm Hussein.
So Vinod is there. Vinod is not here. Shivam.
Yes, sir. Sir, I was thinking of doing a cross flow type of simulation where, like, I'm thinking that, let's say we have a cylindrical duct and I'm flowing a ambient air fluid, like ambient air through it, and hot air is flowing like in the cross direction. So I'm trying to analyze the
Through the
heat.
cylinder, one fluid is flowing, and in the cross direction, another flowing outside the
Yes,
cylinder.
sir. Yes, sir. I'm thinking of it, but I'm not sure like whether it will be a like big task or
It will be not a big task if you do it using some commercial software. It
Yes.
won't be a big task in that case. By coding, it's a big task.
Yes, sir. I was thinking of that itself. I'm
In
not sure
coding,
like in 3D if it is feasible because my PC
it
has
is
also.
feasible. It is feasible using Fortran code, base code that we have. It is feasible using that. So
Okay.
using proper boundary conditions, even using the code, it can be modified and done. Like the code you are working on, it can be done using that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That can be done. Yes.
Thank
It
you,
is
sir.
just a matter of proper boundary condition, geometry creation, things like that.
Mhm.
Actually, it is interesting. Now that you are saying this,
Yes,
later
sir.
on I will discuss later with you and Karthik about your
Oh,
project.
yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Swadhin has left. Rituraj has left. Swaraj has left. Kashif, have you decided anything?
Sir, I haven't decided yet, but I was looking at some problems, sir. I don't know whether it would be sufficient or not. Like the one
No,
which
problem can be simple. You don't worry about sufficiency. Your main worry should be whether you can finish it within the time, because time is short.
so the one which you gave like mid-sim for a problem, sir, like
Yes.
a basic conduction equation. I'm thinking of just adding a source term to that and writing a code for that in MATLAB.
So is it a 2D? I don't remember. 1D problem or 2D
It was a
problem?
1D problem, sir.
1D problem. So if you do that, I would suggest 1D problem with source term, right? So then,
Yes.
because it's a very simple problem, but there is a lot of scope of analysis, I would suggest that you try, once you write the code, you try the effect of different grid spacing. Means, say you divide the geometry into 10 grids, 20 grids, 50 grids, like this. Okay, same code by changing, and then try to find out how the error changes for that. You can easily compare with analytical solution. It is present in any textbook, analytical solution for 1D heat conduction with source term. It is just a matter of simple integration also. So you can find out and plot the error variation versus grid size, something like that. Average
Yes.
error variation or maximum error. Then that will be a more interesting topic, because we know the solution of 1D heat conduction with source term analytically, but numerically, if we keep on refining the grid, how much error, how the error decreases, that might be an interesting problem that you can try using MATLAB.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will be very challenging but interesting. Tamil, Selvan, or what should I call you, Tamil or Selvan?
Sir, both combined Tamil Selvan.
No, your entire name is very long, Tamil Selvan. So either I will call you Tamil or Selvan.
Sir, Tamil is
Tamil is fine. Okay.
yes.
So what is? Have you decided any topic?
Sir, yes, sir. I have decided to work on fins, sir. The heat transfer that is taking occurring
So
in
how will
fins.
you model it? Fin means a 2D fin you are considering, or
As a 1D fin, sir. 1D fin, and I will be comparing it with the exact analytical solutions that I'm getting.
then that is good. 1D fin means you will have to give them some heat loss.
Adiabatic. Yes.
That adiabatic fin does not make any sense. What is adiabatic? Tip is adiabatic, you are saying.
Yes. Yes.
But there will be heat loss from the sides, right? And in a
Yes,
1D,
sir.
how will you incorporate the heat loss from the side? That can be done, but how will you
Yes.
do it?
Sir,
Because we do not have side boundary.
sir, I read the syllabus, and I was able to derive the equations for that, and
So
I'll
if you
teach that.
have to put fins and heat loss from the side, you have to put that as a negative source term in the equation.
Yes, sir.
That is the way you have to tackle a boundary condition which is in the other direction, but you are not analyzing that direction. For example, if I am just talking to everyone now. Say you are trying to do a problem, okay, where you have a 3D problem. Like there is one of our projects is there from DRDO, where we analyze the impact and the heat generation during impact of projectiles, like say projectiles fired by large caliber guns, how they impact on armor plates. Armor plates are plates which are put on tanks or other armored vehicles to stop the projectiles. Okay. So if you try to model that, it's a 3D problem, because your projectile is coming from the third direction and your plate is a 2D plate. Say plate axis are X and Y and projectile is coming from Z direction. So in that case, even that also we can try to model as a 2D problem. How? Heat generation. So if we know what is the energy being brought by the projectile, kinetic energy, we can consider just the problem domain as a 2D plate. Okay, just a 2D plate with say adiabatic boundary condition or anything. And if we imagine that the projectile is impacting at the center, so at the center we can put a source term that this much amount of energy is coming in this much time. So if we know that in 10 seconds 2 projectiles hit, so we know that in 10 seconds how much energy comes, so we can average it out and we can put some energy per unit time at the center. This will account for the energy that is coming from the Z direction, although we are not solving for the Z direction. So like this, we can simplify any higher dimensional problem to a lower dimensional problem, which is very useful because you save the computational time drastically. Same thing with the problem that Tamil was telling. So if it is a fin-based problem, and if we want to solve it as a 1D problem, the heat loss occurs in the other. So say the fin is the length of the fin is along the X direction. So heat loss occurs along the Y and Z direction, in the other directions, cross-sectional area. So that we cannot put in 1D problem as a boundary condition. So we have to assume that this much is the heat loss. That heat loss can be a function of temperature also, like the source term, and then we can put it in the equation as a negative source term and solve the problem as a 1D problem. Like this, we have to do in research many times. We have to simplify the problem. Okay, this is fine. Mayank, you had sent me an email, right? Have you thought about means able to come up with your any idea or?
Sir, actually, I was looking problems in Malasekara book right now.
Okay.
So I've looked in that, sir. Problems are given with solutions. So could I take one of them and solve it by doing some kind of variation like that?
You can do. You have to implement that in the code, say in MATLAB. But what problem? Have you thought about it?
Actually, sir, right. Only finite volume.
It should be somewhat sufficient. And somewhat sufficient analysis should be there if it is a very simple type of problem. Like what I was telling Kashif, similar to that. Means if you select a simpler problem, you have to do more analysis. Like you can do various grid sizes and things like that, grid independent study or different boundary conditions, effect of different boundary conditions like that.
Sir, that only diffusion problem will be okay or not?
Diffusion problem, then you have to think about some variation of the diffusion problem because others are also doing. So what will be your diffusion problem that you have to think? Say you take 1D or 2D diffusion problem. Anything is fine. Transient problem is generally easier than steady state because transient you can just go with explicit scheme. Steady state means you have to solve all the equations. Transient means you can just update. So, but you have to think of a problem which is slightly different from Kashif's problem. You cannot just take the same problem. Okay. So you can try with some say 2D domain is there and with some heat source or something like that or some different boundary conditions and try to see the effect. Okay, this type of problems you can try. Some of you can also think about like using code itself. Very simple code can be written where the velocity field is already known. Velocity field is already known. Say pipe flow. Okay, we know the velocity field in pipe flow or pipe flow is still it is cylindrical code. It's a flow between two parallel plates. So we know the flow between two parallel plates. Okay, how the flow field looks like. It's a parabolic profile. So this we can impose, but we can just solve the temperature equation with the imposed velocity with different plate temperatures. Say one plate is at lower temperature, one plate is at higher temperature, and see the effect of velocity. Or say just high temperature plates and initial liquid temperature and see the effect of velocity and temperature profile. These type of problems can be done. Where the velocity field we are not solving, it is already imposed, means we just provide it as an equation in the temperature field and this can be tried. Or you can go with a pure diffusion problem. But think of more analysis if you go with a simple diffusion problem. What type of analysis if you can compare with analytical solution, that will be good, or if you can find out the error for different grid sizes, that also is useful, or then effect of different boundary temperature, something like that.
Yes, sir, I understood that. Okay, sir, I will try finding out the combination.
Decide and you have to submit by Friday. Dushyant?
Yes, sir, I will do the programming assignment, and sir, I want to solve the, convection diffusion problem, but sir, I couldn't find the problem. I just want to ask to you
Convection diffusion problem, if you want to solve the convection equation, then it will be too difficult within this allotted time. Okay. Means
sir.
if you want to solve the Navier-Stokes equation, that itself becomes a large project. Just solving the Navier-Stokes equation. So I don't think it will be feasible. If you target, then you try to solve a very simple 2D convection diffusion, but it will be too difficult. You will just get stuck. If you can try, it is good. Means by coding, I am saying.
Yes, sir. So, sir, what should I do?
Have you thought of any problem like convection diffusion problem? You can still try, but you have to provide the velocity field in that case and solve the temperature field. Say for example, constant velocity is there from left side to right side of a domain. It's like I have a squared domain, okay, and
Yes,
I
sir.
have constant velocity from the left to the right side. So at each control volume, you already know the velocity. We don't have to solve for the velocity. Velocity is say whatever, like 1 meter per second or whatever. Okay. So now if I have different temperature boundary conditions and try to solve with different velocities, so 1 meter per second, 2 meter per second, I will see that transient problem. So initial temperature was 300 Kelvin everywhere. And or you can do like this. Say initial temperature is 300 Kelvin everywhere and the flow is coming at 400 Kelvin, something like that. Okay. With constant velocity. Velocity, you are already saying that it is fixed velocity. Then how the temperature field changes in the domain with time. This type of transient problem, you can show the temperature field at different times, say after 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, depending on the domain size. So we will see how the hot fluid comes inside and replaces the cold fluid, and what is the effect of diffusion also. So even if there is no flow, still because of conduction, there will be some like temperature rise in the liquid, right? So if the velocity is too small, only due to conduction, the temperature will rise in the liquid, which was at 300 Kelvin. That will be the like basic case. Then if you put a small velocity, how the temperature rises, average temperature versus time also you can plot for different velocities. Something like that you can do. It is easy because the velocity you don't have to solve. You just have to solve one equation, that is the energy equation. And you should take it transient problem, because then it is easier to solve, because you can just use explicit scheme. Then you don't have to simultaneously solve all the equations. In explicit scheme, you know that the value at a point just depends on the previous value. So you can just calculate like that. You go back to your notes, find out the explicit scheme and try to use the explicit scheme. Okay. So any of you who are trying a transient problem by coding, you should try to use the explicit scheme. It is much easier to implement. Transient problem is much easier as compared to steady state. An explicit scheme will be much easier because you don't have to simultaneously solve all the equations. Although in MATLAB, it is not difficult to simultaneously solve all the equations, because it is just a matrix inversion. It's just one step in MATLAB. But if you are writing in other languages, you have to do the matrix inversion or bring other libraries. So I think something like that you can try, Dushyant.
Yes, sir.
What about Ashraf?
Sir, actually, I thought of this.
Cannot hear you. Can you?
Sir, actually, I thought of the same thing, sir. Transient. Actually, I thought of doing transient analysis of flow between two parallel plates, sir.
Okay, transient analysis of flow between two. How will you do it? Means flow field you will fix, or solving flow is too difficult?
Sir, inlet and outlet temperature, I will be fixing it.
And what about the flow field?
Velocities, average velocity, I will be fixing.
Okay, inlet outlet temperature. Then it becomes same as Dushyant's problem.
Yes,
so,
sir. Actually, I thought of it.
You discuss with him and slightly. Dushyant, you can take a slight variant, okay, of that problem, somewhat slightly different. And if Ashraf is taking this, think about some slight variation of the problem. Means somewhat different problem you can take. What about different type of velocity profile is there, like a vortex is there, and how the mixing occurs, or some flow field is there, some flow is coming from the center and going out from all the boundary, okay, like a ideal flow kind of, and it is coming with some velocity and some high temperature fluid. How the temperature evolves with time, something like that can be done. Like a square domain is there, but in the center there is a circular hole through which it's a 2D problem. So that circular hole, whatever flow will come as a source term in the energy equation, and flow field you have to impose. Something like that you can think about, or other types of flow field you can impose, or you can take a more practical problem like room is there, a 2D room, and it is being cooled from one side by air conditioning, and there is heat transfer due to radiation, something like that. I'm telling to Dushyant. Kashif, you are telling something?
No, sir. No, sir. My mistake.
Priyal, what about you?
Yes, sir. Sir, I was trying to solve that 2D diffusion equation.
Madhumita, Madhumita is
Sorry,
speaking.
sir. No, sir. I'm still speaking because my microphone is not working, so I'm speaking to Madhumita's microphone.
Okay, okay. Both of you are here in the campus, right? Because classes
Yes.
from next week will be in the classroom.
Yes, sir. We are here in the campus.
Okay. So Priyal, what about you? What 2D diffusion?
Yes, sir. TD conduction equation with source term, different source terms, using MATLAB.
Okay. But everyone is taking the same problem, is it? So can we just slightly verify, slightly alter the problem? 2D conduction with source term. That is fine. That is fine. I'm thinking more. If you do independently, that is fine. Means it will give you a lot of learning if you can do it. And what I can say, yes, tell me.
What you can suggest then?
No, same thing. I will suggest a slight and more analysis on that problem. Say, for example, you have a squared domain, 2D squared domain. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And initially it is at certain temperature. Okay, initially
Yes.
it is at certain temperature, so 300 Kelvin. And then the total heat that you are providing to the domain is fixed. Say I am providing 100 watt or something like that. You just find out a suitable value. But this heat that you are providing for different cases over different area. In one case, you are providing over a very small, say, square area in the center, say 10% of the length. So if the length of your domain is 1 meter by 1 meter, in the first case, you are providing the entire heat within a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter area. Second case, 20 centimeter by 20 centimeter area. So the average heat source is less, means the heat flux is less average, but the total amount of heat that is provided is same for all the cases. In one case, it is very concentrated. In the other case, it is somewhat diluted. In the other case, it is diluted. In the extreme case, it is provided over the entire domain as a uniform heat flux. So how the temperature what is the difference in temperature between all the cases, and the average temperature versus time between all the average temperature should still be same for all the cases because you are providing same heat. So how much differences you are finding, that is because of numerical difference. So those things you can compare, and the variation of temperature you can plot, something like that. So it's still a 2D diffusion problem with source transient problem, but with different initial condition and different initial and different source term
Sir,
arrangement.
not transient one. I'm thinking of steady one.
Steady will be more difficult. You want steady, that is also fine. But steady state, then you have to think about what will be the boundary condition. If it is a adiabatic boundary condition, steady state does not lead to anything, because adiabatic means that there is no heat loss from this side. So if you provide a source term, will it reach steady state? If it is adiabatic, what will happen? Temperature will keep on increasing, right? You are providing source, and there is nowhere for the heat to go. So temperature will keep on increasing indefinitely. It will never reach steady state. So steady state only will be reached if you have a constant temperature or heat flux boundary condition, at least in one of the boundaries. If you do like that, then you can do the steady state problem. Okay. Say you have the boundaries at 300 Kelvin and initial temperature also 300 Kelvin, but you will be doing steady state, right? So boundary at 300 Kelvin and some source term for different sizes, different source terms, and see how the temperature distribution occurs. You can plot it along the central line and compare the graphs, the steady state. That you can do. Is it clear or okay?
Okay, sir.
What about Madhumita?
Sir, actually, I have confused between the equations. So, I'm thinking of the unsteady diffusion equation, but I'm not finding any problem to apply it.
You can just develop your own problems. Again, like I was telling, all of you, most of you are trying that because it is simpler to achieve. So you can take the student who is decided on the fin. So that is the practical type of problem. So something like that you can come up with, say, unsteady diffusion, right?
Yes, sir.
Say you have a very heated metallic block, something like that. Okay, like when we take out of the furnace, which is at 1000 Kelvin or something like that, and the block is there. For simplicity, let us assume that it's a square block. If you are able to do a cylindrical or spherical block, that is fine. But otherwise, let us assume the square or cubic block, 3D block. Okay, and then it is put into water or in air. Okay, and then there will be heat loss because of convection and radiation from the boundaries. Okay, as a result, what will happen? The temperature of this block will decrease. Okay, but the boundary condition is itself dependent on the temperature, because convection, if you remember, convection heat loss is equal to H into temperature at the wall minus temperature of the fluid. So T minus T ref, because temperature of the wall or temperature of the wall of the block is decreasing, your heat transfer, like convective heat transfer, also will decrease, and radiation is dependent on sigma T to the power 4 minus T surrounding to the power 4. Again, T is decreasing, so radiation will also decrease. So the rate of energy loss will decrease. So, and at the side of the block, the temperature will be lower. At the middle portion, it will be higher, because there will be a temperature gain, because the heat is lost from the side wall. So this you can take up as a 2D problem. 3D also is very easy, but if you want, you can take up as a 2D problem. 2D square wall with a high initial temperature and some heat flux conditions at this side, where the heat flux is realistic heat flux, like convective and radiative heat flux, and they take properties of a metal like steel or something from internet, and then try to solve it and try to find out how the temperature at the center point decreases with time, average temperature decreases with time, and temperature at the boundary decreases with time. Like you can plot the boundary temperature versus time, center point temperature versus time, average temperature versus time, and find out how much time it takes to cool it to from 1000 to 500 Kelvin, something like that. This type of problem you can try. Okay, and do more analysis if you want. You can change the convective heat flux H to, if you assume it is air, H will be different value. If it is water, H will be different value. You can find from the internet, and you can see how fast will be cooling by water instead of cooling by air. It is still very simple to implement, but has a lot of practical implication, like a real life quenching type of problem. So will you be able to do that?
Sir, I'll try it.
It should be possible. It's just a 2D code you have to write, but yes, properly implement the boundary condition. That is the important thing. Okay. So, or if you can make some variation of this, but don't go with the same problem as others like Soderstrom and adiabatic wall. Try to come up with something. Even if you are doing 2D unsteady problem, unsteady will be easier, but if you are doing 2D unsteady problem, try with some variation, not with the Soderstrom. Okay. Some variation where the effect of boundary condition is a function of temperature. Okay, so all of you need to submit by Friday night. Okay. And if everything is okay, you can proceed. I will let you know by Monday, in Monday's class, whether looks okay. Already it looks like everyone is almost decided. Raj Sachin is here. not come, right? Then Abhijit and Vinod also not there. Okay. So we will now continue with our discussion. Any questions? So I think it is better just to take a break now and then continue the discussion. Okay, I will take a 5-minute break and then continue the discussion. So we'll start with unstructured grid. So today we'll just try to understand what is unstructured grid and what are the different grid structures. And the next 2 classes we will try to go through some discretization for unstructured grids. Very simple parts because it's a quite complicated topic. And then try to solve 1 or 2 problems, numerical problems. Finish of the course. Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break here. So we'll continue. Can you still hear me and see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we have done in the course is that we have gone through initially. So I will just summarize once because we have already finished the syllabus. So we have gone through the basics like the governing equations for different cases, and then we have gone through some description of the different types of partial differential equations that are used, and found how their characteristics look like, and then we went into discretization. So you know what is discretization by this time. We divide the domain into number of subdomains, and then for each subdomain we specify or we try to use the governing equation for each subdomain to find out algebraic equations. That is the main essence of discretization. Why we develop these algebraic equations? To simplify the if we can simplify the PDE to algebraic equation, it is much easier to solve them. So we have a set of simultaneous equations, like a simultaneous set of equations for n equations for n unknowns like this. And we have seen finite difference method and then finite volume method. And in finite volume method, which is very widely used, we went into a lot of depth on how to discretize each of the terms, starting from the diffusive term, then source term, unsteady term, and finally the convective term. And finally, we have seen how to tackle the fluid flow equations. So with this basic knowledge, now when you are working later on in some research problems, most probably the problems will be much more advanced. So if it is a say phase change problem like boiling or melting or solidification, or it's a turbulence problem, so some additional equations and additional parameters are there to be solved. But the basic structure still remains same. This basic knowledge that you gain here is still very useful, whatever we have discussed. Okay, so you should apply that knowledge if you are working on research in any of the CFD related fields. So the entire course, what we have discussed till now, we have always assumed that the grid structure is very systematic. Like we have geometry which is based on square control volumes. Okay. Accordingly, we have said that the control volume is say grid P and its neighbor are east, west, north, south like this. So this is only a small subset of type of grid that can be used. There are various types of grid that can be used. What we have used is known as regular or structured grid. Okay, and that is also a very specific type of structured grid only that we have used for studying our equation, where the structure of the grid is based on Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, so it is based on along x direction, y direction, and z direction. We divide the domain into control volumes, and accordingly all the equations are also solved along x, y, and z direction. All the terms are written like that. So that is only one way of solving, and that is very useful if you have a complex problem with complex physics, but the geometry is very simple, like say melting in a box. Okay, something like that, or say some change is occurring, turbulence is there, but it is occurring in a regular geometry. Large flow is coming and there is a lot of turbulence being generated, but in a rectangular box. So in those type of cases, we can easily take the type of geometry that we had discussed, which is a type of structured geometry because it follows a particular structure. So today we will discuss what are the other type of structured geometries, and then what are unstructured geometries. So if there are various types of structured geometries that we will see, and if there is no particular pattern to the control volume, like to the control volumes, then it is known as unstructured. So actually it is not about geometry, it is about the grid that we are generating. So we either generate the grid in a structured fashion, or we can just haphazardly generate them. But that is also useful in cases where we have very complex geometries. where you cannot fit structured grid. Okay. So let us first see a few examples and then we can have more discussion. Okay. So to summarize, we have only used structured grid based on Cartesian coordinate system for our derivations till now. Okay. So one point here is that whatever we have derived still holds true. Only small changes occur, but the method for derivation is still true for any other type of structure geometry, like if it is based on cylindrical coordinate system or spherical coordinate system, still it will be true. Okay. So similar structure grids can be used in other coordinate systems such as cylindrical or spherical. Okay. So in general, there are two types of grids. I will show you some examples of these, like some schematic diagrams. So what are these two types, structured and unstructured? So what are the main features of structured grid? Again, those who have done this part will know this. Okay. At least the brief description I have provided, but we might not have gone into discretization of unstructured grids. But basic difference you should know always. So structured grids is that the main features are that the domain can be represented by coordinate lines. Okay. Domain, I will explain what this means. Domain can be represented by coordinate lines. And grid points are placed at the intersection, okay, of the coordinate lines. So for example, in this case, if I have a domain like this, so whatever is the domain, so this is the domain. Okay. Take another color. This is the domain. Okay. And we have divided the domain into structured grid. Okay. So how we have divided? We have drawn lines like this. These lines are known as coordinate line. They follow a certain direction. Okay, they are not haphazard. They follow a certain direction. These are known as coordinate lines. Similarly, these are also coordinate lines. Okay. So for example, this may be along the y coordinate direction and this may be along some theta coordinate direction or some z coordinate direction which is curved. And the grid points are placed at the intersection of the coordinate lines. Okay. This is one way, or other way will be that. So if we put the grid points first, then we can put the control volumes like this in these cases around the grid points. Or if you plot the control volumes, then put the grid points. The grid points can be joined by lines like this, coordinate lines. Okay. So this will be the next control volume. Like this, it will go on. And this is your coordinate line. So any structured grid, this holds true. There will be some lines and grid points are placed at the intersection of the lines. Second important point, very important point, is that interior grid points have the same number of neighboring grid points. Okay, this is known as same connectivity. Take any grid point, this one. Okay. It has 4 immediate neighbors. This one, north, this is south, east and west. Okay. Or what I have written here, ijk. So if it is a 2D problem, it will be only ij, so I plus 1j, I minus 1j, ij plus 1, and ij minus 1. So 4 neighbors. If it's a 3D problem, it will have 6 neighbors. Okay. Just the immediate neighbors, not the corner points. Okay. So it will be true if you take any other point also. If I take this point also, it also has 4 neighbors. Okay. Any point has 4 neighbors except boundaries. Okay. So that's why interior grid points, interior grid points have the same number of neighboring grid points. Okay. And the third important point is that any point, grid point, can be positioned in a grid structure. There is a particular structure and we can locate its position by its index values. Okay. So index along x direction may be given by I. So I is increasing from 1, 2, 3, 4, like in this direction. Okay. Similarly, in the other direction, index may increase as j equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like this, up to some say 10 or 100. So if I give the index, see if I say that locate point 30, 12, 4, you immediately know which is the point in the grid structure. Okay, so just by value of the indices, okay, so you will be able to find out the location of each point. So each point has its own individual index. Okay, it is, so that is the thing, and these indices grow or increase the value along a certain direction. Okay, so if I follow this line, the value of I will keep on increasing. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this. Similarly, if I follow this line, the value of j will keep on increasing. Okay, so the value keeps on increasing along a certain direction. It's not that it's this point is I is equal to 2, then this is I equal to 5, this is I equal to 17. Not like that. It should smoothly increase. Okay. So these are the important points regarding structured grid. Again, let me just summarize. One is that you can connect all the grid points through coordinate lines. The grid points are placed at the junction of the coordinate lines. Each grid point has same number of neighbors. Okay, very important point. And the grid points can be mapped to a matrix. Okay, so the location of the grid point can be found using its index values, index along the different coordinate directions. If I have 3 coordinate directions, it can be XYZ, it can be R theta phi, or it can be RZ theta. It is not only about Cartesian coordinates, or spherical or cylindrical coordinates also it holds true. So you know, with increasing theta, we will increase the value of j like this. Okay. So this provides the main advantage of structured grid. So because we know that each grid point can be represented by its index values, we can write all the corresponding parameters like temperature, pressure for each grid point in terms of matrices. Okay, matrix. So for example, if I know that there are 20 grid points along the I direction, 10 along j direction. Okay, so I can create a matrix with 20 by 10 size. Okay, so this will give me all the 200 points. So because there will be 200 points, 20 along I direction division and 10 along j. So we will have 200 points in 2D. So if I write a matrix with 20 by 10, so it will have all the points, and then correspondingly I can save the temperature in a matrix of 20 by 10 size. So 200 temperatures corresponding to each individual element of the index matrix. So like this, then we can do all the matrix calculations like matrix inversion or whatever is necessary for solving. Okay, so that's why structured grid the solution is much easier. Okay. So if we can draw a structured grid or we can develop a structured grid for a problem, we should always try to go for a structured grid. Okay, main advantage is that writing the code and solution is much easier. Not only that, chances of convergence also increase because it is you have the calculation of the derivatives are done better in a better way because you have equal distances and no means same number of neighboring points. All these calculations are easier. Calculating derivatives are also easier, and the chances of convergence also increase because you don't have any like any grid which is very different from its neighboring. Say if I have one grid like this and the second one is very narrow, okay, like this. So in that case, the one grid point will be very close to the interface, the other grid point will be very far away. Then the calculation of the derivative will have more numerical error, but this type of problems will not arise here. So chances of convergence will increase. So even for complex geometries also, we try to fit in as much structured grid as possible in most cases. If you are trying to develop using ANSYS or any commercial tool, if you have not done it so like previously, you will see that you can generate randomly any grid structure, but then you may have convergence problem. Then if you change the grid structure to make it more and more structured instead of so randomly when you generate, it will just fill it with triangles if it is 2D problem, and it will fill with tetrahedrals for 3D problem. But if you try to make it structured, then you have to manually do it. Like you have to specify how the lines will be there, but it will lead to better solution. Okay. So these are advantages. Okay. Disadvantage is that if the geometry is very complex, then you cannot fit in a structured grid properly in that case. Okay. So some unstructured grid needs to be provided, like sharp corners are there or some. It's not it's a very irregular type of geometry. So there are different examples of structured grid. Cartesian, we have already seen in the entire course. We have just depended on Cartesian coordinates, structured grid. But there are other types like cylindrical, spherical, orthogonal curvilinear, and non-orthogonal curvilinear. I will just explain all this. So Cartesian is what we have already worked on. Okay, Cartesian means we have a Cartesian coordinate system, and along the axis of the Cartesian coordinate system, we have the grid points. So say if I have a 2D domain like this, so I have a 2D Cartesian coordinate system x, y. So my grid points are aligned with x, y. So if this point is I, comma j, then along the x direction, this I will increase. So this is I plus 1j, and behind it will be I minus 1j. So the value of I increases along the x direction, and value of j increases along the y direction. So this will be I j minus 1. This is ij. So ij plus 1. Okay, like this for each of the cases. This will be I minus 1 j minus 1, I minus 1 j, I minus 1 j plus 1. So the grids are generated using Cartesian coordinate system. This is very useful for regular rectangular type of geometry. Okay, because you can, if you have a rectangular geometry and if you have such a nice grid structure, your equations will be solved in a much easier way. So you can tackle very complex physics like chemical reaction is occurring, things like that, because chances of convergence will be better with such a nice grid structure. Okay, so this is suitable for regular rectangular geometry. Even irregular geometry also can be tackled by using stepwise approximation. Like for example, if I have an aerofoil structure like this, okay, this blue line is the aerofoil structure inside blue line. Obviously, I cannot approximate the curve of the blue line exactly by using Cartesian coordinates. So what we can do is we can have rectangular blocks like this, okay, like a staircase or steps, which will approximate the shape of the airfoil. Similarly, if I have a sphere and if I try to put in Cartesian coordinate system grids, then again for the walls of the sphere I have to approximate using steps. Okay, so this is one way to tackle other types of geometry, irregular geometry, using Cartesian system. However, there are some problems here. One problem is that you need to select a certain area, right? Like you cannot just, so in one case the I is increasing from 1 to 10, so j is increasing 1 to 10, in another case j is increasing 1 to 12, not like this. So you have to take a larger area of uniform size, okay, like this, larger area of uniform size, and then divide it into structure like this. And whatever falls outside the aerofoil, you have to block it out. Means there the equation will not be solved like this, and only the part which is within the structure will be solved. So you need some additional computational, say, storage space for solving for the aerofoil structure because of the irregular nature of the irregular shape of the domain. Okay, because you cannot fit Cartesian coordinate in a nice way in the irregular structure. This is one drawback, so waste of storage and resources. Another drawback is that any property that you are trying to calculate for the surface will not be very accurate. Like for example, in this case, what we try to calculate for aerofoil, we try to calculate the lift and drag, okay, or the shear stress. So if we try to calculate the shear stress, which depends on the velocity change just adjacent to the wall, okay. So if you do not exactly accurately capture the shape of the wall, we will not be able to exactly accurately capture the shear stress. Okay, so this error can be reduced if you take finer and finer grids. Okay, but then the computational time will increase. Okay, if you keep on increasing the number of grids by making them smaller, you will be approximating the shape more accurately. Okay, if for a sphere also I can use Cartesian coordinate system. I can use very large number of rectangles to approximate the shape of the sphere. And we do it like this in our research problem. So that is one way, but it will need to lot of requirement of computational resources. So this is what I have defined. Approximation at wall leads to error in calculation of wall shear, heat flux, etc. Whatever are the wall properties or wall calculation. Fine mesh can be used for capturing the geometry more accurately, obviously, but this leads to more computational effort and storage space. Is it clear? Any questions? Any questions? We'll try to finish somewhat early today because I have some other one. So second type of structured grid, which we can consider is cylindrical or spherical grid. Okay. So again, it is similar to Cartesian grid. Okay. But now the coordinate axes are not Cartesian coordinate along Cartesian coordinates, but along spherical or cylindrical coordinates. Like for example, if it is cylindrical coordinate is like this, right? You have, again, drawing is very difficult. It should be like this, more like this. Okay. So one axis is along R, along the radius. One axis is along the theta direction. Okay, like if we rotate along that direction, something like this, along the theta, and one axis is along the z direction. So this is the cylindrical coordinate, R, theta, and z. Spherical coordinate, we have two directions along the angles and one along the R, theta, and phi, something like that. Okay. So in that case, again, the lines will, coordinate lines will be along the coordinate directions and the grid points will be arranged like this. So for example, in 2D, okay, along the R direction, radius direction, you can see that I is increasing. This is I minus 1, this is I plus 1. Okay, but J is fixed. But if I go along the theta direction, I is fixed, but J is increasing. So this is Ij minus 1, this is Ij, this is Ij plus 1, this will be Ij plus 2, like this. Okay. So again, it is very nicely arranged and you can write them in a matrix. And all of them has same number of neighboring points also. This has 4 neighboring points. This, and this. Similarly, in this one, except the boundary points. Okay. So even this one also will have same number of neighboring points. This one will also have same number of neighboring points, 4 in this case. Okay. So it is exactly similar to Cartesian coordinate system, only that instead of straight lines, now it is along the coordinate lines, which is for cylindrical or spherical coordinates. Okay, so along those directions. And again, the calculation is not too difficult for this also. We can use similar equations and similar process that we have defined. Okay, only the governing equations are slightly different, but other calculations are similar, derivative calculation. So these are very suitable if you have a, like pipe flow or flow in a cylinder or some spherical problem, like some chemical reaction is occurring in a spherical shell, or melting is occurring in a spherical shell, or some heat transfer is occurring outside a sphere, spherical shell. So this type of problems, okay, heat exchanger, like cross flow over a cylindrical pipe. In many cases, cylindrical or spherical coordinates will be more useful as compared to Cartesian grids. Okay, because Cartesian grids, you will not be able to approximate the circular shape. You will have to use steps at the boundary. But here you will be able to exactly approximate the circular shape and thus calculate the heat flux and any boundary properties in a better way, like heat flux or shear stress. So these are not the only type of structured grid. Okay, we can have more types of structured grid which are not based on Cartesian, spherical, or cylindrical coordinates. Okay, so again, there can be two other types of structured grid. All of them fall under body fitted grids. Okay, what is body fitted grid? It will be clear from the example. Okay, so it takes the grid and the coordinate lines take the shape of the body. Okay, we make it approximate the shape of the body, but it still follows a proper structure. Okay, for example, let us consider this. The blue aerofoil is the body. Okay, like it is a cross section of wing of an airplane. Okay, it's aerofoil structure. The airplane cross section wing cross section looks like this. And we want to find out the flow pattern outside this wing. Okay. So if we take a Cartesian coordinate system, this type of structure has to be taken. Okay, it will be less accurate. Obviously, cylindrical or spherical coordinate is not suitable for this. Okay. So even if we try to fit structured grid, one way is to go for unstructured grid. But if we try to put structured grid, what can we do? We can make the coordinate lines so that they follow a certain structure and is parallel to the shape of the body, more or less parallel. So for example, this line is a coordinate line. Okay, this goes like this, although it does not follow any XYZ direction, but it has its own pattern. It follows the shape of the body and comes back like this. So this point, if I can call I is equal to 1, this will be I is equal to 2, I equal to 3, I equal to 4, like this. I will increase in this direction. Okay, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, like this, 20. So the entire line I is increasing. So it follows a smooth pattern. Although the shape is not a straight line, but we know what are the neighboring points. So for example, if this is I is equal to 5, we know that I is equal to 4 and I is equal to 6 are its neighboring point. If this is equal to I is equal to 18, we know that I is equal to 19 and I is equal to 17 are its neighboring point. So I increases in this direction. Similarly for the next line. And similarly, these coordinate lines which are perpendicular, and we can consider that J is increasing along this line. Okay. So this will still be structured. So we can still write store the data in matrix form. Okay. In a structured pattern. So in this case, now we have two types again. One is known as orthogonal curvilinear. Curvilinear because it is a curved mesh. Okay. This is body fitted because it follows the body structure, and it is curvilinear because it's a curved mesh. Now orthogonal means that these coordinate lines that you see here, okay, these coordinate lines are perpendicular to the coordinate lines along the other direction. Okay, so wherever they are crossing each other, they are perpendicular. These points are perpendicular. Although this line is curved, okay, but these lines are drawn in such a way that they are always perpendicular to the curved line. Okay, at each point. So this is known as orthogonal curvilinear mesh, and this has a big advantage as compared to the next type that we'll study. So if these lines are perpendicular, the calculation of the derivatives, okay, and the equations are much simpler. Okay, if the lines are not perpendicular, then all the flux calculation, everything becomes much more tedious, much more cumbersome. So even these are orthogonal. Whatever these Cartesian systems obviously are orthogonal. Okay, these are also orthogonal. These lines are perpendicular to these lines. Obviously, you should know that it's a property of a circle. Right? If I draw a tangent here, it will be 90 degree with this line. So all these are also orthogonal, and that's why they are much easier. But even with this curved mesh also, we can have perpendicular cross section. So this is one type. Okay. If even this is not possible, then another way is to fit non-orthogonal curvilinear mesh, but still structured. Okay, still structured. So it is still structured means we have coordinate lines which are increasing. Say I is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. Similarly, this is I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like this. For each case, it is increasing, and J is increasing along this line. But the lines are not perpendicular to the other direction lines. Okay. For example, this line is not perpendicular to this line. Okay. So mesh lines are not perpendicular to each other at the intersection. As a result, the governing equations are more complex, but other features are similar to structured mesh. Okay, other features are similar to structured mesh. Same number of neighboring points. Okay, so still easier to solve than unstructured grid. Still easier to solve because same number of neighboring grid points are there, and there is a particular order in which I is increasing and J is increasing. So we can solve the equation by running loops from I is equal to 1 to something and J equal to 1 to something. Okay. So for all the structured mesh, one issue is that local grid refinement is not possible, or you have to You have to have multiple structured grids. If you just put one single structured grid, if I want to have very fine grid structure here to capture more details, then I have to continue this everywhere. So the computational effort will increase. Okay, this will be my grid structure. Fine grid structure everywhere. Okay, but I don't need fine grid structure far away. I just need it near the body. So this is one drawback of structured grid. So as a result, there is one final type of structured grid which is known as block structured grid. Okay, where you divide the domain into multiple blocks, and for each block you provide separate structured grid. Okay, for example, this same aerofoil structure, we know that nearby we need to calculate very accurately, but far away there is not much change that is occurring. So instead of putting the grid size same far away and nearby, we can divide it into two blocks, like an internal block like this with a very fine structure, and external block like this with a coarse structure. And we can have different types of structure also, like internal I can fit body fitted orthogonal curvilinear mesh. Outside I can fit rectangular Cartesian coordinate based grid. Okay, so we can have two different types of structured grid also. Okay, so this is known as block structured grid. So the characteristic is that in this case the domain is divided into different regions. Each region has a separate structured grid. As I was explaining, mesh may even use different coordinate system for different regions. Fine grids can be used locally. So that is the main advantage why this is tried. So if you want very accurate data for certain point, okay, so say some jet is coming inside a domain and you want to calculate very accurately near the jet, we can put a finer mesh near the jet entry, and far away we can put different type of grid. Or say like the Formula One car, if I want to calculate the drag over the Formula One car wing, okay, so very near to the Formula One car wing, I can put very fine mesh, and far away from the wing, I can put coarse mesh, because I know that only the flow pattern near the wing is causing the drag or downforce. The flow pattern far away from the wing is not very important. Because I am only interested in downforce or drag, then I can just put very fine mesh nearby, but I still need to have the larger domain so that far away effects, like boundary effect, does not impact the calculation near the body. Okay, so I cannot make the geometry small like this. You can say that what is the necessity of putting the extra thing outside? Because if I just put the boundary like this, the flow pattern will be impacted by the wall. Okay, so the flow will try to move around like this. But in real life, because flow is free to move, it will start deviating from much farther away. So the wall effect should not be present. That's why we take a very large domain when we study aerofoil structure or something like that, 50 times the size of the aerofoil or 100 times the size of the aerofoil, so that the walls do not interfere with the flow pattern near the aerofoil structure. The code also in this case can be developed blockwise. Okay, so it will be more difficult as compared to single block structures, but still it is better or easier to implement as compared to unstructured grid. Okay. So these are different type of structured grids. Okay, let me just go through them once. Cartesian grid based on Cartesian coordinate system, cylindrical grid based on cylindrical coordinate system, spherical grid based on spherical coordinate system. All these are orthogonal grids. Then body fitted grids, which are curvilinear type of grids. So orthogonal, where the mesh lines are perpendicular to each other at the intersection, and non-orthogonal, where the mesh lines are not perpendicular to each other. Okay, and then we can have multiple blocks, each with its own structured grid, which is known as block structured grid. Okay, for example, say I can have something like this. Again, drawing is very difficult with the mouse. Flow over a cylinder. Okay, so very near to the cylinder, I can take a very fine circular grid or cylindrical coordinate system. Okay, like this, with a very fine structure like this. Okay, and far away, I can just take Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, something like this. Outside, so it is like a block structure. So outside I have Cartesian, inside I have circular grid. So this type is also possible. What will be the advantage of this? This will give us more accuracy for the flow pattern near the cylinder, instead of if we try to use Cartesian grid for the entire domain. And why don't we use circular grid? Because if the geometry is square, outside geometry, then circular grid you cannot use for the outside boundaries. So you need some other approximation. Okay, that is the thing. The final type of geometry or grid structure is unstructured grid. Okay, this is very widely used, and particularly if you just beginners who try to use commercial software. So if you try to just use the default machine, it will just generate some type of unstructured grid. Okay, I will show you what is unstructured grid, but says it will fill the entire domain like this. Entire domain will be filled with triangles, quadrilaterals like this. Generally triangles, but it can be other shapes also, okay, depending on the problem. It will just fill the domain randomly. You can refine it, so it will have more triangles of smaller size, but still it will not follow any structure. Okay, so this is the, so if you have a geometry like this where there is no particular structure, you cannot say which direction coordinate lines are going, and then the neighboring points also changes, number of neighboring points, then this is known as unstructured grid. Okay. So no structure or coordinate lines can be defined, okay, or can be found. Okay. Number of neighboring cells is also not fixed. Okay. So for example, for this cell we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 neighboring cells, 5 or 6 neighboring cells. But for another one, we may have only 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So number of neighboring cells is also not fixed. No limitation on control volume shape. So for example, here I have triangular grid. This is a quadrilateral. This is a pentagon. I can use combined anything. Okay. Whatever is suitable for approximating the complex geometry. This is a simple geometry, so I could have used structured grid. This is just for example I am showing. But if it's a very complex geometry like a car structure, okay, in that case fitting a structured grid may be quite difficult. For aerofoils, generally still people work with structured grids. Different types of structured grids can be done. But if it's a very complex domain, like I was saying, or say you are trying to find out the flow pattern around a tree, okay, branch tree structure. So then it's a very complex. So many branches are there. How will you fit structured grids? Not possible. Then you have to resort to unstructured. So in general, triangles and quadrilaterals are used in 2D, and tetrahedral means like 4-cornered pyramidal structure, right? And hexahedral, 6-corner structures. So this type of control volumes are used in 3D. Okay. And mesh can be a mixture of these different types of control volumes. Okay. For example, for flow around cylinders, quadrilaterals give better resolution of viscous effects in the boundary layer. So if I have a cylinder, if I have quadrilateral just near the cylinder wall, I can have a much more accurate calculation of the shear forces, okay, near the boundary of the cylinder or cylinder wall. But farther away, I can just use large triangles to easily create the structure, because far away it is not necessary to calculate very accurately the flow pattern. So we can just reduce the computational effort by using large triangles. Lot of advantages are there for unstructured grid. What are the advantages? You can do local mesh refinement. So if needed, I can put large number of small triangles here, okay, where I know that lot of change will occur, or here where lot of change will occur. Wherever there will be lot of change, I can do local refinement. Refinement means I can increase the number of control volumes in a small region. Okay. Second is adaptive mesh generation is easier. Okay. Say the aerofoil is moving. Okay. So in one time the aerofoil was like this. In the second time it is flapping like a bird wing. So it has moved in this direction. Okay. Like a bird wing, it is flapping. And if you want to solve this in ANSYS, it is possible. So, but what will happen if you have the grid structure created for the first geometry? Then for again, when it has moved by a certain amount, you have to create a new grid structure. Every time, at every time step, you have to again and again regenerate the grid structure, or you have to deform your original grid structure to conform to the new pattern. Okay. So this type of problems is much easier to tackle using unstructured grid. Okay. Multiple times grid generation is occurring. So say flapping wings or things like that, where there is motion inside. Okay, one part is rotating, other part is fixed. This type of problem. So these are advantages, but still we try to always go for structured grid if possible. Why? Because of two reasons. One is that accuracy will be less as compared to structured grid. If I can fit a structured grid, accuracy will be more. Second is that implementing is much more difficult. Okay, because you do not have I, J directions, X, Y, Z directions. Okay, so for each of them you have to individually, based on their coordinate points, like vertex coordinate of the vertex, you have to calculate the flux for each of the walls to its neighboring point. So separately you have to do the calculation for all of them, and different types of calculation will be there depending on the vertex and their orientation. Okay, so much more difficult to implement. You will need much more storage space also, and the discretized equations become much more complicated. We will see one main complication in the next class. Okay, we will see that. I have it already written. What we will see is that, say, if you have this anyway we'll discuss in the next class, but let me explain. You have two triangles like this. Okay. So in our entire discussion in the course, when you join the two grid points, okay, so these are the grid points. Grid points are at the centroid of the whatever is the control volume. In this case, triangle, so centroid of the triangle. If it was quadrilateral, it will be centroid of the quadrilateral. If I join the grid points, in all the previous discussion, the line joining the grid point was perpendicular to the face. Okay, face between the two control volumes. Like for this case, if this was our grid structure and this was our one grid point, this is our grid point. The line joining the grid point was perpendicular to this face. Okay. However, for unstructured grid, this is, in most cases, this will not hold true. Okay. Here you can see that this red line is not perpendicular to this blue line. Okay. As a result, when we try to find the flux at the interface, in this case, it was easy. I can just calculate this value minus the temperature at this point minus temperature at this point by this distance. Okay. So that is delta T by delta X. That is the flux perpendicular to the interface phase. But if I try to find the flux like this here, it will be the flux in this direction, but we need the flux from one control volume to the other in the perpendicular direction, perpendicular to the face. So the perpendicular to the face does not align with the line joining the two grid points. So if I try to calculate using this difference, it will not be accurate. We need additional terms to calculate it properly, and we will see how to do that in the next class. But that is one of the big challenges. Okay, more difficult to implement, and discretized equations are more complicated. Okay, but still it is widely used when you have very complex geometry, or if you do not want to put too much effort in creating the grid. Randomly, you just use any grid generation to automatically generate the grid, but chances of convergence will be less. This is how it will look like. So if I will have grids like this, whatever can be used to fill up the domain. Okay, like this. Any questions? I have uploaded these materials. You can go through them. Yes, tell me.
Sir, for parabolic like system, it is possible to do with structured grid or unstructured?
Parabolic system means the domain is means
Yes.
what do you mean by parabolic? Domain means elliptical domain can be there, but parabolic means one side is open. Means so this type of, you are saying that one side is infinitely like a semi-infinite domain.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Or elliptical, you can think of if you want approximation. Okay, it is possible using structure. So you have it will be like more like this orthogonal curvilinear mesh. Okay, it should follow the. It is somewhat like spherical or cylindrical coordinate system, but it should follow the, instead of being cylindrical, it should follow the parabolic pattern. Okay, so I should have coordinate lines like this. Okay, and like this. I'm not able to draw clearly, but these are parallel or follow the same pattern. And then you have coordinate lines like this. Somewhat like this. It is possible. It is possible. It's systematic, so it is not difficult. It will be more difficult as compared to rectangular, but it is still possible.
Yes.
Unstructured grid is necessary when there is no structure at all. Okay. So like I was saying, flow around a tree or any real life problem you take, flow around a car. So putting structured grid, then you have to put lot of blocks like this. Divide the car into different blocks. Still, it will be difficult nearby because the tire shape is different. Wind is there. Windshield is different shape. Sorry, not wind. Sorry. The door is different shape. Windshield is different shape. Mirrors are different. So like this. Aeroplane. So wings are of different shape. Then engines are different shape. All these are very complicated structure, right? Any real life structure like casting problem, okay, or say any complex flow pattern in like hundreds of examples are there. You can just take any of the problems. Okay, flow in a say air conditioning in a room where you have lot of other devices like HVAC planning. So where you have different types of heat sources of different complex geometrical. So any of this can be approximated better. But if you can fit a structured grid, it is always much more beneficial. So, and we can do it for many realistic applications, like say electronic cooling, okay, which can be like fins. Fins have regular structure, so I can put grids which are using Cartesian grids. Okay, then heat exchangers, which are like flow through parallel pipes or cross pipes. So I can use some structured grids there. Many real life problems can be tackled using structured grids. If you ask my research students also, we just use structured grids for very complex problems, okay, which have very complex geometry, but we still use structured grid and do approximation. Is it clear? Who was asking the question? Madhumita or Priyal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other question? By Friday, please submit that. Okay, Friday night, so that I can take a look and I can discuss with you in Monday's class. Monday's class, remember, I will send you the room location. It might be communicated to you, I don't know, but I will anyway send it to you. It will be in mechanical department, School of Mechanical Sciences. Most probably in the second floor. I have to check and confirm. Okay. You can just find out that room number. I will send it to you. So at 9 o'clock. Okay. And we will finish this part next week. Only brief part is there. Some mathematical analysis we will do, and then next week we will have the presentations. Final class will not be there. So we will just finish before that. Okay.